The pearl, Kino. The pearl diver, Kino is a poor but hard-working Mexican pearl diver who discovers an enormous pearl. At first he sees it as a way to secure a better future for his family, but his obsession with the pearl brings him misfortune and trouble. He represents human ambition, hope, and the danger of greed. Juana, Kino's wife. Juana is Kino's devoted wife. She is practical, wise, and deeply protective of their child. Juana quickly senses the evil surrounding the pearl and urges Kino to throw it away. She symbolizes love and moral clarity. Coyotito, the baby, from the cradle to the grave. Coyotito is Kino and Juana's infant son. His scorpion sting and eventual death frame the story's central tragedy. Coyotito represents innocence and the fragile hope of the future. The doctor. The unnamed local doctor initially refuses to treat Coyotito because Kino is poor, but later changes his mind when he hears about the pearl. He symbolizes colonial arrogance, greed, and social injustice. The pearl buyers. The pearl buyers are local agents who conspire to cheat Kino by undervaluing his pearl. They represent systemic exploitation and the corruption of markets. The trackers, hunters. The trackers are men who pursue Kino, Juana, and Coyotito after they flee the town. They represent the violent forces of greed and oppression that threaten the vulnerable. The late moon arose before the first rooster crowed. Kino opened his eyes in the darkness, for he sensed movement near him, but he did not move. Only his eyes searched the darkness, and in the pale light of the moon that crept through the holes in the brush house Kino saw Juana arise silently from beside him. She moved toward the fireplace and like a shadow she glided toward the door. She paused for a moment beside the hanging box where Coyotito lay, then for a second she was black in the doorway, and then she was gone. Rage surged in Kino. He rolled up to his feet and followed her as silently as she had gone. She burst clear out of the brush line and stumbled over the little boulders toward the water. Her arm was up to throw when he leapt at her and caught her arm and wrenched the pearl from her. He struck her in the face with his clenched fist and she fell among the boulders, and he kicked her in the side. In the pale light he could see the little waves break over her, and her skirt floated about and clung to her legs as the water receded. Kino hissed at her like a snake, and Juana stared at him with wide unfrightened eyes, like a sheep before the butcher. She knew there was murder in him, and it was all right, she had accepted it. And then the rage left him and a sick disgust took its place. He turned away from her and walked up the beach. His senses were dulled by his emotion. He heard the rush, got his knife out and lunged at one dark figure and felt his knife go home, and then he was swept to his knees. Greedy fingers searched him, and the pearl, knocked from his hand, lay winking behind a little stone in the pathway. It glinted in the soft moonlight. Juana dragged herself up from the rocks on the edge of the water. Her face was a dull pain and her side ached. She steadied herself on her knees for a while and her wet skirt clung to her. There was no anger in her for Kino. He had said, "I am a man," and that meant certain things to Juana. It meant that he was half insane and half God. Although she might be puzzled by these differences between man and woman, she knew them and accepted them and needed them. Of course she would follow him, there was no question of that. The little prince. Now there were some terrible seeds on the planet that was the home of the little prince, and these were the seeds of the baobab. The soil of that planet was infested with them. A baobab is something you will never be able to get rid of if you attend to it too late. It spreads over the entire planet. It bores clear through it with its roots. And if the planet is too small, and the baobabs are too many, they split it into pieces. It is a question of discipline, the little prince said to me later on. When you've finished your own toilet in the morning, then it is time to attend to the toilet of your planet, just so, with the greatest care. You must see to it that you pull up regularly all the baobabs, at the very first moment when they can be distinguished from the rose bushes which they resemble so closely in their earliest youth. It is very tedious work, the little prince added, but very easy. One day he said to me, "You ought to make a beautiful drawing, so that the children where you live can see exactly how all this is. That would be very useful to them if they were to travel someday. Sometimes there is no harm in putting off a piece of work until another day. But when it is a matter of baobabs, that always means a catastrophe." I knew a planet that was inhabited by a lazy man. He neglected 3 little bushes. So, as the little prince described it to me, I have made a drawing of that planet. I do not much like to take the tone of a moralist. But the danger of baobabs is so little understood, and such considerable risks would run by anyone who might get lost on an asteroid, that for once I am breaking through my reserve. Children, I say plainly, watch out for the baobabs. My friends, like myself, have been skirting this danger for a long time, without ever knowing it, and so it is for them that I have worked so hard over this drawing. The lesson which I pass on by this means is worth all the trouble it has cost me. Perhaps you will ask me, why are there no other drawings in this book as magnificent and impressive as this drawing of the baobabs? The reply is simple: I have tried, but with the others I have not been successful. When I made the drawing of the baobabs I was carried beyond myself by the inspiring force of urgent necessity. Less than summary, greater than. The Little Prince warns that baobabs bring a disaster if not controlled, teaching responsibility and discipline in taking care of one's planet. Since they resemble roses when young, they must be pulled up early. His lesson stresses careful attention, showing children that laziness causes problems. The drawing of baobabs is strong because it gives important lessons. The Old Man and the Sea, Santiago. The Old Man, Santiago, is an aging Cuban fisherman who has gone 84 days without catching a fish. Despite his poverty, weakness, he remains proud, skillful, and determined. He represents endurance, dignity, and the human spirit's fight against defeat. His relationship with the sea is deep and respectful, and he often speaks of the marlin as his brother. Manilin, the boy. Manilin is a young boy who learned to fish from Santiago. Although his parents made him work on a lucky boat, he still loves and respects the old man. He helps Santiago by bringing him food, bait, and companionship. Manilin symbolizes loyalty, hope, and the passing of tradition to the next generation. The marlin, the great fish. The marlin is Santiago's greatest opponent. It is huge, powerful, and noble, representing nature's beauty and challenge. The struggle between Santiago and the marlin becomes a test of strength, patience, and spirit. The sharks attack Santiago's marlin after he finally catches it. They symbolize destruction, greed, and the forces that threaten human achievement. Despite Santiago's courage, the sharks strip away his hard-earned victory. He took all his pain and what was left of his strength and his long-gone pride and he put it against the fish's agony. The fish came over onto his side and swam gently and started to pass the boat. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it and lifted the harpoon as high as he could and drove it down with all his strength into the fish's side just behind the great chest fin. He felt the iron go in and he leaned on it and drove it further and then pushed all his weight after it. Then the fish came alive, with his death in him, and rose high out of the water showing all his great length and width and all his power and his beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash. The old man felt faint and sick and he could not see well. But he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands and when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder and the sea was red with the blood from his heart. The fish was silvery and still and floated with the waves. The old man laid his head on his hands. "Keep my head clear," he said, "I am a tired old man. But I have killed this fish which is my brother and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the rope to tie him alongside the skiff," he thought. "This skiff will never hold him." He started to pull the fish in to have him alongside the skiff. "I want to see him," he thought, "and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune," he thought. "But that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart when I pushed on the harpoon the second time. Bring him in now and get the noose around his tail and another around his middle to tie him to the skiff. Get to work, old man," he said. He took a very small drink of water. "There is much slave work to do now that the fight is over," he said. He looked up at the sky then out to his fish. "Come on fish," he said. But the fish did not come, instead he lay there and the old man pulled the skiff up to him. When the fish's head was against the bow he could not believe his size. It was the only way to kill him, the old man said. He was feeling better and his head was clear. "He's over 1,500 pounds, he thought. "Maybe much more. I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me."